Today I bring you more mixing tips for Bitwig, so let's start. I don't know if you know how panning works in most DAWs, but when you have only one panning knob, what it will actually do when it goes to the right is going to decrease the volume of the left side, and when it goes to the left, is going to decrease the volume of the right side. To demonstrate, let's make this synth be all the way to the left. So if we go to the right in the panning, we will actually make the synth go silent. Now, 99% of the time this is not an issue, but sometimes you can get an audio clip that's not balanced, and panning this way is not enough. In that case, what you need is to put the dual pan device. With this device you can move the left side to the right, and the other way around too. That way, if I want this synthesizer to be in the center, I just have to put it in 0. This next tip is to control more than one track at the same time. For example, what if you want to lower the volume of, I don't know, these 4 tracks? Your instinct may tell you that now they are all linked, but that's not the case. Not even if you press a key like Ctrl, Shift or Alt. What you actually need to do is, when you select multiple tracks, you will have this new panel on the left. Now you can change the color of each track, change the volume, the panning, you can arm all of those tracks, solo them and even mute them. So now you can control all the faders as you want, and they will maintain the relationship. Not only that, you can also activate or deactivate all of those tracks. Now, this may be a little bit strange, but you can get used to this really quickly. Usually I use third-party reverbs, but what if you want to use only Bitwig devices? For example, here I have the Reverbs Classics with the A plate from the Lexicon 480, but as I said, I want to use Bitwig devices. The thing with the stock reverb is that it only has one algorithm, and you can change the early reflections for a room to a hall. Obviously you can change the size, the pre-delay, and some damping on the frequencies, which make this pretty amazing, but you don't have a plate reverb or a spring reverb or something different. That's why you need to use convolution. I don't know you, but I love using convolution technology for reverbs, and that's why I'm using Reverbs Classic originally. Convolution replicates how a device reacts to a sound, and is widely used for reverbs. It can be used for real spaces, for example St. Peter's Cathedral Saints, or for actual hardware units. If you click here, you can check all the impulse responses, and you have real halls, real rooms, springs, studio halls, nonlinears, and some experimental synthetic ones, but I don't know if those are good for mixing. Not only that, thanks to the names, you can guess from which hardware unit they are taking the impulse responses. Pretty useful, versatile, and really powerful. I think I should make a video only on convolution. Comment down below if you would watch that. Sadly, this next tip is for something you need to avoid. A really common technique on mixing is parallel processing. So for example, what if I want to use parallel processing for this bass? If you watched my first video of mixing tips for Bitwig, you will remember that for parallel I use FX layers, and if you don't, go watch it now. If we keep layer 1 empty, we will have the dry signal, and then we can add any other effect on parallel. But there's one effect you need to avoid, and that one is EQ+. Check out the sound difference. We are losing clarity on the original sound. This is because EQ+ doesn't have delay compensation. That means that we have latency issues, and that means that the time difference between the dry signal and the parallel EQ+ will be just a little bit of milliseconds. But that's enough to have phase issues, and phase issues can change the sound and even destroy it. This is something that many Bitwig users want to be fixed, but for anything else that this DAW offers, it's really minimal. One of the most simple effects you can use when mixing is a clipper. What a clipper does is similar to a curve of a saturation. It will cut anything that goes beyond a ceiling. With that you can tame the transients of a sound, and it's really unnoticeable, and when you look for a clipper on Bitwig you don't find anything. But actually there are clippers. One of them can be found on the amp. Now, usually the amp is for making sounds like this. But if you check the presets, this folder right here, you will find one that's called soft clip. Let's check the reading of the dBs. And also let's increase the gain, so we go to the reds. Right now we are over 8 dBs from 0. But if I apply the soft clip preset, check out the reading. It sounds pretty similar, but now we are just 0.3 dBs above 0. I'm feeding a lot of gain to demonstrate, but of course the idea is that you fine-tune it. Now for a hard clipper, you will find it on the bit 8. This is a bit crusher, but if we take everything off to make it not crush the sound, we can go to shape and choose soft clipping, hard clipping, and other kinds of distortion. Hard clipping is more aggressive than soft clipping, but it will make sure that you don't go above a number. In this case, we're hitting minus 5.1, and as it's hard clipping, the difference is a little bit more noticeable. Some people like to keep a bus going directly out to your speakers so you can monitor your session. You just have to add an audio track and then put it to go to the speakers or to the studio. Then you can make your master fader go to that audio track, and there you have it. Now you can put effects on the master fader and keep the final track clean to monitor with different analyzers and whatnot. This is also useful to make a reference track folder. This time we add a group, and we make the group go to studio. That way it doesn't get affected by the effects that you have on your master fader. So you can put any song you want in this track, and it's going to sound clean. So you can reference better with your ears. On my first video, someone mentioned that you can still make buses by rooting things, and that's true. It's not the way I like to do it because I got used to working with folders, but you can do the following. For example, let's add some audio tracks. So to make a bus, you will have to add another track, and you just have to change the rooting right here. If you cannot see it, you have to press this little icon. Then you just start rooting. So now we have a bus. Now this tip is something basic, but I made a lot of mistakes because of this. Each audio clip will have different modes on how you can stretch them. And the default mode is stretch, which means that it's going to keep the pitch, but when you change the tempo, it's going to get faster or slower. To fix that, the mode has to be on raw. Not only that, you can change that on settings, so for long samples, you can keep them on raw. Another really common mixing technique is to put a drum trigger so you can be able to use samples to replace or to complement an original sound. For example, what if in these drums, I don't know where to go, this is not my last time. If I don't like this kick, I will just replace it or use another one to give it more punch, more body, whatever. For that, many mixing engineers use what is called a drum replacer. One of the most common, I think, is Trigger 2 by Steven Slate. And thankfully, Bitwig has its own replacer. You can put it in the same track, but as I want to keep the original sound, let's add a new audio track. Here we just choose the replacer, and now we need to route the original kick into this new track. You can do it just by choosing here, I added the monitor on, or if you want, you can put an audio receiver. So now you see the replacer detects the original sound. If you put any instrument in the generator, you will manage to trigger another sample. Let's choose something electronic and really accelerated so we can make it more noticeable. And one good thing about Bitwig is that if you drag and drop into this generator, it will immediately make a sampler. Not only that, it's going to trigger C3 as you can see here, so it's going to be the original sound. Remember to put the mix all the way up, and now let's take a listen. With the threshold, you can control how the replacer detects the signal. Of course, the idea is that you look for samples that complement the original sound or that sound according to the music. Another tip I want to give is the difference between the compressor and the dynamics device. These two share some stuff but are pretty different. Let's go first to the compressor. We have input, output, makeup gain, attack release, ratio and threshold. It's a simple standard compressor and it shows you the gain reduction. Now, for starters, what makes the compressor different from dynamics is that compressor will add a tiny bit of saturation, a tiny bit of color to your track when you go hard. Dynamics, on the other hand, is not only completely clean, but also has many other options. You got the standard compressor with this high threshold. You can change the knee, of course you got your attack, release and output, but you can change the detection from peak to RMS. And not only that, you also have an expander. What's even crazier is that you can get upwards expansion and even go crazy with something like upwards compression. Finally, Dynamics also has sidechain features. You just have to select the sidechain input right here, and you can select tracks and even devices. What's even better, you can put any effect you want on the sidechain, which is really useful, especially for equalizers. For the final tip, as I said, if you have really small time differences between a dry signal and a parallel signal, it can introduce phase issues. Let's use EQ Plus again, and this time let's use it on the snare. Pretty noticeable, and it makes the snare go really ugly. One of the most common ways to fix it is actually to introduce a little bit of latency to one of the tracks, to make sure that both tracks are playing at the same time. Some people will even zoom all the way in the clip and then start moving it like this. But the easier way to do it is by going to one of the sounds. This time I will go to the dry sound as is happening earlier, and I'm going to put the time shift. I have it in samples, you can put it in milliseconds, the results are going to be really similar. So now let's listen how this fixes the phase issue. With just 4 samples, we fix the issue. Not only that, you can also put it on the signal that's happening later and just go on negative values, this time -4 samples. And that's one way to fix phasing issues. So I hope these tips are useful to you, and if they are, please give a like to the video. Not only that, subscribe to the channel and remember to comment below if you want a video on convolution. I will see you next time, and bye bye!